Welcome to today's webinar on the new 2017 Drawing Editor Enhancements. My name is Laura Hackle, and I'll be covering being able to add non-standard field bolts on erection view details, drag-off dimensions, scaling anchor bolt erection views, adding multiple sheet items to a sheet at once, and more. You may type in your questions during the webinar, and I will answer them at the end. So now you're able to add non-standard field bolts to erection views. So right here, if I come in here and rotate around, I have a fully welded moment connection. And then off to it, that's framing in perpendicular here, I have a shear tab connection. And if I edit this, it does say that the bolts I have are 7/8. So my they would be considered my non-standard field bolts. So in my options pull down, fabricator options, we now have non-standard field bolts on erection view details. Here's going to be how the label gets called out for bolts that are not in the match table, which we'll get to later on. This is the match table. And then we also have a label format, which I'll get to later on as well. You can define how you would like your non-standard field bolts to get called out on the erection views. So for example, this first one, my quantity, I'll have that be put first in my format. My user text, this is just my first example, I'll put that I want a dash. So it's going to be my quantity dash, and then I want my diameter third, and my bolt material and type to be called out fourth. So I'll click OK. So this is just my first example. Now when I go to detail my erection views, and I'm going to click on second floor, and then I'm going to come off to the right and click on my settings. We do have here, I have some concrete in my model, so I did set up a status display to mask my concrete slab and wall. This is just even if you don't have the concrete license, you can still put in concrete slab and wall there. And then in my annotations, I'm going to set my remove drawing annotations to all. I'll get back to this later on, but we're going to be redetailing this view, so I just want to remove the system annotations. And then show on erection views, there's a checkbox now at the bottom right corner for non-standard field bolts. I'm going to check that on and hit OK. And then OK. And then when I go into Drawing Editor, I'm going to go to my erection view, and I'm just going to click on my second floor here. And here is, if I open up my fabricator setup, so I have my quantity first. My user text had the dash there, that's second. My diameter is third. And then fourth is my bolt material and type. So another way to format this is maybe I take my user text off, and we have a label format. So a label format will be like you would add a %S would represent what each of these label components represents. So for example, I'm going to put %S, that represents quantity. And then instead of putting that user text in there for the dash, I'm just going to put a dash here. So I have %S. Actually, I'm going to make sure my caps lock is not on. And then dash. And then I want my diameter to be followed second. So I have my quantity first, and then a dash, and then my diameter second. My bolt material and type, maybe I want that to be in brackets. So I put a bracket here, and then %S again. So it's just how you want it to be called out, your format. So I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm just going to open up another detail. and then go ahead and redetail this. So now here's another way for it to get called out. If I open up my setup again, I had first was my quantity, then a dash here for my label format, then I had my diameter, and then we show that the percentage S for that third one, that represents the third one there, is now in brackets. Moving on down to the second part of this is my match table. So I have my object style, so that's going to be how it's called out if it matches the table down here. For example, I'm going to put my symbol to be A. My diameter, I'll have it be 7/8. My type, I'm going to put it at A325N, and I do want my quantity called out. So what it's going to do here is I could have this object style get called out as combine the symbol and quantity into multi-line. I can have a bolt symbol with a diamond shape and then the quantity note. So this would be the quantity note down here. Or I could have a bolt symbol with a hexagonal shape with the quantity note. So the first one would just not have a shape there. And then we have our quantity formats, kind of like your label format. So it's getting called out as quantity and then a dash and then the value there. If I wanted the value, I could put it in brackets if I wanted to as well. I'm going to hit OK. Just open up a detail again and redetail the second floor. So now we have it called out in a hexagon. We have it called out as A because it matched my table, and then quantity with that value. Now you will see some over here get called out still as the same at the top. So open up my setup one more time. So if it doesn't match anything in that table, so if this does not match anything in the table down below, then it will still get called out as on top. So it'll still get called out with this format here. If I wanted to, I could do symbol B. Maybe my diameter is set to 3/4. And then I'll put in A307. Redetail it. Oops. And then we have it called out down below. Now I can edit these as well. And we have the shape symbol I can change. So I could change that to a diamond. And then since it's a diamond, I have a symbol location. Right now it's getting called out my symbol location. Right now is on the right-hand side. Maybe I want that to be on the left. So it flips it over to the left side. I can edit this one as well. And since it's hexagonal, I could change that to be on the right-hand side as well. Up here we have our moment symbols. So moment symbols, now you can drag them along the member line. I can also edit this, and we do now have a call out for left end moment symbol and right end moment symbol with the pen color that it associates with. So if I wanted to, I could uncheck the right end and it just won't show up. Another example would be maybe in the model I could not get a moment symbol to get created or the system to give me a moment connection, but the engineer provided all of the correct information. I could come in here and check on maybe for my left and right end, and it provides those symbols on there for my views. We have scaling anchor bolt details. So if I go to detail my erection view, if I select AB plan, for example, and come into my setup, I do have this again. I do want to mask when I have my concrete slab and wall. And then I will come into my annotations. Right now, I'll just leave this, remove drawing annotations set to all, that's fine. And then I'm going to check on dimension anchor bolt layout. And then once you have that checked on, there is now an option to scale anchor bolt layout and a scaling factor. So if I scale those up to 3, for example, what it's going to do is it's going to freeze the dimensions to holes. So it'll display the correct value. It will omit the scaling or dimensioning and scaling, I guess, for vertical bracing. So what I mean by that is if I hit OK, so for example, I scaled these up for a factor of 3, but it did lock that value. And if I edit this, it does say that the label is frozen. So it locked those values to those holes. Now if I deleted one of these and I add in my own dimensions, you'll see now it says like 2'3". And if I edit that, it is not, the label is not frozen. So then if I were to go and redetail this, so I'll save it and maybe go to my second floor. And I'll go and redetail this. I'm going to turn this off. And I'm also going to do remove drawing annotations. I'll just remove my system ones. Now you see, since it scaled it back down, since this label was not, or this dimension was not frozen, it kept it there at an incorrect dimension. When I was masking the concrete, I can also detail an erection view with concrete. So if I go to detail my erection views, maybe I do a concrete foundation plan. Let's see if I open up my modeling and maybe I go to concrete foundation. I do have a wall here. And then I also do have a slab in there. I don't have a concrete license. You can still put this in. So what I'm going to do is go into my settings here. We have concrete member style now. And if I go into line styles, I can still do slab and concrete wall. And maybe I want to change this one down to this dash style for my member line. And then we also have down here, we have show concrete hatching. If you don't want hatching on, you can still uncheck that. And then I set up a status to mask when it is not concrete wall or slab because I just want to show my concrete. And let's go ahead and turn that to all, remove, and hit OK. So now we have my concrete. There is a PR to be able to scale or have a scale factor for the hatching. Right now I'm just going to turn this to hatches and I can edit this and maybe turn the scale factor to 3. And I can also do it in my walls as well. Maybe change that to 2. So you can scale up your hatching. So here's the line, the member line style that I had for my slab. And then we also have for my concrete wall. for just adding some lines, we do have some new commands for that. So if I just go over to like line add, now it doesn't, the starting point is not bounded to anything. So wherever I pick my mouse is going to be where my line starts. So I'm going to draw, and now I can just middle click to move to start a new line. I'll just do that for a couple of these. So I'm just middle clicking to move my new starting points. And once I'm done, I can just right click. So we do have some new commands here. We have a line trim, a line extend, and then I also have in my objects lines, we'll get to this in a second, we do have extend to intersection. We do still have line shield as well. So the first one I'm going to do is line trim. It says select 2 or more lines for trimming. So I'm just going to make a box right here to select my 2 lines and right click OK. And then it says select segments to trim. So I can just select that line right there. And I could also just left click to locate that line to trim as well. Once I'm done, I can just return. So again, line trim, select 2 or more lines for trimming, right click OK, and then it will say select the lines to trim. We have line extend, so it says select line to extend to. So I want to extend this line to this line. So this is going to be my first one that I select. It says select line to extend to. And then it says select line to be extended. I'll select that one, right click OK, and it extends that line down. I'm actually going to turn this off of hatching before I get in trouble. And then you can also do line extend as well if you want to bring a line back. So let's say select the line to extend to. So I have this line here. I want to extend this line up here back down to this line. So it says select line to extend to. I'll select the line that I want it to be extended to. And select line to be extended. Right click OK. And it extends it back to this line. And then the third one we have is, I'll just add in a couple lines here. Oops. Forgot to middle click. Just delete that line. So I have these 2 lines here. If I go to my objects, lines, and then I can extend to an intersection. Now you see that there are these icons over here, and then there's also my shortcut on my keyboard. So it says extend line, select first line. So I'll select this as my first line, select my second line, and it extends it to a specific intersection. We have detailing members using a status display. So I have shown in the past for, I think, modeling enhancements, I did go over being able to add your status display. So for example, if I go to detail my members, and I'll just hit select all here. So if I have to redetail some members, if I come over on the right hand side and there's status display, I can check that on. And I created a status display in modeling. And I did that for, let's say, something that you couldn't just go into the hide button for. So I did it for all of my beams in sequence 1 that have a shear tab connection. So I created one that was called shear_sequence 1. So then that brought it down and it hid everything that was not in sequence 1 and that was not a shear connection. So I have those 4 members selected, and then I can just hit OK. I want to make sure my settings, I'm just going to turn off using templates just for it to go through. And then I can go ahead and open that. I'm going to just say no. Details. Maybe I only want to see those members that I just detailed. I can go into status display again and load that again. Go to my desktop, and then I have shear sequence 1. It only shows those members, and so I could just edit that specific one. So I'm at B11. We do have in our display options, we do have, they do look like they're updated as well, just like inside of modeling when I had modeling enhancement updates. So for example, maybe I just want to see my extension dimensions. So if I come over here to dimensions, let's bring that down, and maybe I only want to see my extension dimensions, I'll select that and hit apply. And it'll only show my extension dimensions. And then you will have the little eye next to dimensions in that tree. And then this one will also be red. If I want to reapply that, I can just hit select all and hit apply, and it comes back. We do have a new thing called drag off dimensions. So I'm just going to unshorten this beam. So drag off dimensions will give you the ability to create a dimension based off of a line or a polygon side. So you will need to select the line and then pick the point that you want the dimension to be added to, or where you want it to be added. So for example, if I go to dimension add and I hold down my shift key, so you want to make sure you hold down your shift key, and then the middle button binding will be drag off. So you're not actually dragging the dimension off, you're just picking the polygon side or the line, and then you're selecting where you want it to be placed. So I'm going to middle click for drag off. It says select side for dimension. I'll just select this. So I'm not holding down my mouse or by dragging it off, I'm just selecting that for my first point. And then here's for my second point. Now you will see it goes back to dimension add. So if I wanted to keep that in the drag off dimension mode or command, I can go to my objects pull down, dimensions, and there's add drag off dimension as well. So here, if I wanted to select the side, and see I'm still in it for selecting a side, so maybe then I've already done this. Maybe I'll go over here for that line, so I can just keep in that command. So again, if I was not in this, by going to objects and then dimension and drag off dimension, you would do dimension add over on the left side and just hold down your shift key, and it's your middle button binding. Going along the lines of the status display, if I was detail sheet autoloading, so I'm just going to close out of this, say no. So if I go to detail sheet autoloading, maybe I just want to load on my members that are in sequence 2 that are maybe my W18s or W18 by 35, for example. So I'm just going to click OK. And then I'm going to come into my status display again. And I already created one inside of modeling. And I'll go to my desktop. And then I have my W18 by 35 in my sequence 2. That's what I want to get loaded on there. And hit OK. It'll select those 3, and I'll just hit OK. And it automatically adds those on. So those 3 were automatically added on. and they were all my W18 by 35s. If I were to just add on them manually, we do now allow you to add multiple or select multiple sheet items to add at once. So I'll just do save reused here and call it 2. And then I'm going to come in here and do sheet item add. And now I can just select, I'm just dragging down. You can select by holding down your shift key as well, or I just hold down my left button and drag it down to like maybe B14. So you don't have to come in here now and select them one by one. You can select all of them, and then I could put them on my sheet and it automatically goes to the next one that I have selected. And then once I'm done there, maybe I want to add on a few more. So now you do get a message. So I selected too many to fill up my bill of material. So it says this drawing will exceed the plotted bill lines on the sheet or of the sheet. If I hit OK, and then I will just right click. So I'll return out of that. Now, since I went to right click to return out or return, it did go to the next sheet item that I had selected in that list. And you will see that I did not get that message with that next sheet item. So it's saying that it can fit that one on the bill of material. Now the third one that I had selected, it does say this one will exceed. So if I hit OK and just right click, it does not add it on. It's back in the list here. And B17 did get added on because it was short or small enough to get added into the bill of material. We did this for detail sheets. You can also do it for erection sheets and gather sheets. So the next one I have is maybe gather sheets I want to add on. So I'll just do open and gather sheets. I'll say new. I'll just call this maybe my G1. And I'll just select my G24 by 36 here. So for my sheet item add, you can do the exact same thing that we talked about for status display. Maybe for my submaterial, I want all of my angles that are 4 by 3.5 by 5/16 to get added on to my sheet at the same time or just on this one. I can go to my status display. I created this in the model as well. And I will look for the one that I called 4 by 3.5 by 5/16. So I'll select only those piece marks or those section sizes. I'll do select all, and then I can just place all of those on the sheet at once. And then once it's finished, it'll ask me to add on more submaterial. So that concludes today's webinar on the new 2017 Drawing Editor Enhancements. We have now covered adding non-standard field bolts on erection view details, drag off dimensions, scaling anchor bolt erection views, adding multiple sheet items at once, and more.